Hey guys, it's Shox here, and this is a three-part race comparison video series where I'm going to be breaking down all three races and showing you the different mechanics of each race. The reason for this video is it's for new players to see the big difference between all three races, because in Starcraft 2, all races are very different, and you want to pick which race you like the best and stay with it. You don't want to be jumping from race to race and trying to get good at all three races, because it's just not possible for a new player to get really good at each race in the beginning of Starcraft 2. So you want to play each race, see which one you like the best, and then stick with that race and master everything about that race before you go on and try different races. The great thing about Starcraft 2 is all the races are very unique. They have different build styles, different play styles, and they're all very different. So it takes a little bit to get used to each race when you're starting off with when you first start off with that race. So I'm just going to break down each race, show the different mechanics of it, and how they're played. With Terran, which is this first video, is going to be focused on the Terran race. The first thing I want to discuss is how each race builds. This is probably one of the biggest, most important things of each race, because they all have different build styles. With Terran, you use an SCV to build, and each time you want to build a structure, you actually have to use a SCV to build it. So if I was to build a supply depot, that SCV would start building it, and it will continue to build that supply depot until finish. So if I wanted to then build at the same time another barracks, I then have to take another SCV and have him construct a barracks. And then once this SCV is done, I can either have him go back to the line, or I can have him build another structure. The big thing is you really only need one, sometimes two or three SCVs building at a time. You don't need to be having... I see some new players though, like, build something and then grab a new SCV to build another thing, even though that SCV is just sitting there. So you want to use 1-2 SCVs to build up your entire base. You don't need to use 5 or 6 unless you're dropping down, say, 4 or 5 racks at one time to try and pump out a certain unit. But throughout most of the game, you're usually only going to be using 1 or 2 SCVs, sometimes 3, but that's the big difference with how they build. Is each SCV, each structure you need an SCV to build it, and that SCV is going to be occupied the entire time while building that structure. The next big thing is supply. Supply depots are the supply for Terran, and the nice thing about supply depots is they have the ability to raise and lower. So as you can see right here, I have my base walled off to prevent any zealot rushes or zergling rushes, and then when I'm ready to move out of my base, I can just lower my supply depot and then move my guys out, and then raise it back up. And this is going to prevent any guys from running into my base off an early rush, which is very important. Very important. Let me just move these guys off so we don't hear that all the time. And then next big thing you're going to notice with the Terran race is all the buildings, they all have these things called tech labs and reactors. For each building you're able to add on a tech lab or a reactor. So with a barracks, you can either put on the tech lab, and what a tech lab allows you to do, it allows you to build, well, let me show you this. One without a tech lab, it's going to allow me to build marines. Now if I add on a reactor, it's going to allow me to build 2 marines at one time. Although if I add on a tech lab, it will allow me to build these more advanced units, such as marauders, reapers, and then I would need a ghost academy, and I could then build ghosts. It also provides you with upgrades to units, such as stim packs, combat shields for marines, and then reaper upgrades and marauder upgrades. So with a reactor, you can put a reactor on a factory, starport, all your main production buildings with Terran. So for a factory, it would allow me to build 2 Hellions at one time, where if I get a tech lab, I can then build a Sea Shank or a Thor. The nice thing too about the Terran is that all their buildings have the ability to lift off. And what this allows me to do is I can then bring this barracks over, lift it off, and then drop this barracks down on this reactor, and then I can start pumping out 2 marines at one time, which is very nice. You can swap this out with the tech lab of this barracks also if I wanted to. So I can swap this out. And same goes for the starport. So all the buildings have the ability to lift off. You can swap out the tech labs and starports, and that makes it really nice in case you need to do a tech switch in the middle of the game. The next big thing with Terran is would be their Orbital Command Center. Orbital Command Center is something you can upgrade once you upgrade your command center to an orbital command once you have a barracks. And what this does, it allows your orbital command center to start gaining energy. I have 200 out of 200. I have 200 out of 200 energy, and it allows me to do 3 different abilities with the energy. Each one costs 50. So the first one, and probably the most important one, would be calling down a mule. What this does is you can cast the mule right onto your mineral line, and he's going to start harvesting minerals. They last for 90 seconds, and they over time accumulate close to 300 minerals. So it's one of the biggest things with the Terran economy is using mules efficiently, because it's really going to boost up the amount of resources you collect. The next one would be a supply drop down or call down, and that's where you would call down a extra supply onto a supply depot, which will increase your food supply. This is really, you only want to use this if you're trying to build units and you're you're then supply blocked. You don't want to use this just all the time just to gain extra supply, because it's not efficient, because 50 energy could be used for 50 for a mule, which can make you 300 energy or make you 300 minerals compared to just building a supply depot for 10 minerals. Some build orders require you to do this just so you can get the builds out quicker, but other than that, it's really only emergencies if you're supply blocked. And the third one, which is a very useful one, is a scan. So basically you're able to scan any area on the map, which is going to reveal it for a certain amount of time. And then what it also does, it also reveals invisible units. So if my opponent right here, if he's going Banshees and they're invisible or cloaked, same with Dark Templars, I could scan and it's going to reveal them, which if I'm in combat is very useful, because if I can't see the cloaked unit, I could scan and then my unit's going to attack and take that unit out. So besides, the next big one would be repair. A lot of the, if I shoot the supply real quick, alright, this supplies damage. All SCVs have the ability to repair buildings and also repair mech units, such as siege tanks and doors, and then your air units also are considered mech, which mechanical. One second while this guy's bringing some guys into my base. So what the SCV is going to do, he's going to repair it and repair the building back to full struck health. And it's also very useful too with your Thors and siege tanks, because if you're in combat, you can bring a couple SCVs and repair your Thors and siege tanks during combat whenever they take damage. So that's very useful. Some of the disadvantages to Terran is, one is that they're all ranged units, and then secondly, if any of your buildings gets a 30% health, they'll catch on fire, and when they catch on fire, they'll start to burn, and they'll continue to lose HP from burning until they actually explode. So unless you bring an SCV over to repair it whenever it's on fire, the building's eventually going to wear down and explode. That's one of the big disadvantages to them. They're also they're not as mobile as other races, but if you play them, they're more of a slow progression, so you slowly move up the map with them. But Terran overall is a really good race. Again, a lot of new players like to start with them. They're pretty easy for new players to get used to, and one of the better races to start off with. So that's the overview of Terran, and the next video we're going to be talking about the Protoss and different build mechanics of the Protoss race.